In early 2019, there existed two kings of Counter-Strike, Astralis and Team Liquid. However, Astralis was seen much more as the gods of Counter-Strike, and Team Liquid, the world's only hope to slay that god. Astralis had been on an unthinkable tear, being the #1 team for over an entire year. Having won the previous major, they were easily the best team in the entire world. Now to this date, Astralis is the most successful team in CSGO. They have won 4 CSGO majors, 3 of them being consecutive. And as I said earlier, they spent more than an entire year at #1 spot on HLTV. It is also one of the few teams that has consisted of 5 players all in the top 20 at the end of a given year. These consisted of Device and Glaive, as well as Magisk, Dupree, and finally Zipex. These 5 people would go on to be seen as some of the best players to ever touch Counter-Strike, garnering a consistency that has never been seen since then and might never be seen again. That was the thing about Astralis. They were insanely consistent all the time. They would dominate you on every map in any way, any shape or form, on LAN and even online. Today, the Russian IGL for Navi Bumich commented how stability is one of the most important things Astralis has ever achieved, and one of the only teams to have ever done so. Bumich later went on to say how costly this can be for your team's mental health. Regardless, Astralis went on to win tournament after tournament, up until the 2019 major. This would be the first time in a long time that Astralis' skills would be truly tested. And so, with every Goliath, there is always a David. Over in North America, David was preparing for one of the biggest battles he would ever face. However, it wouldn't be for a major title, not yet. It would be for one of the biggest achievements you could have at the time, having a chance to beat Astralis. The players Twists, Stewie2K, Naf, Nitro, and Elige went up against Astralis in the finals of iBuyPower Masters, thus scoring their first significant win over Astralis on LAN. Their win over Astralis, as well as the win over in the tournament itself, cemented them as by far the best team North America had to offer. And more importantly, the team most likely to beat Astralis at the major. And so now this stage was set. Astralis was the Goliath, and Team Liquid the David. Going into the actual major, Navi was in 3rd place, close behind Team Liquid, which was in 2nd. Astralis was actually far ahead with close to 1,000 points, which is the max you can have on the HLTV rankings. And so really that was the thing with Liquid. They weren't necessarily better than Astralis, they just had the biggest chance to actually beat them. And since they had actually scored a win on a major tournament, Team Liquid was then the favorite to either A, win the whole thing, or B, lose to Astralis in the final. To a lot of people in the community, those were really the only 2 options. In a lot of ways, they weren't actually very unrealistic. Team Liquid was really the only major team to score a big win over Astralis where it actually counted. And so, for them, and for the major part of the world, it was really the only chance to take down Astralis. Even I remember back then, the joke was that if you were from North America, you were obviously going to go for North America. So you would pick Team Liquid. And if you were European, you would obviously go for Europe. So you would pick Astralis. That was really the only 2 options. And in a lot of ways, one did end up true, just not in the way we thought it would. And now the only piece left for the storyline was the location. The tournament was to take place in Katowice, a city in Poland with its own CSGO world. And with the storyline set, it was going to be one of the best majors we'd ever seen. And as the teams finally started to play, Astralis and Team Liquid weren't just winning, they were dominating. Astralis and Team Liquid weren't just showing that they were the best teams at the time. They were showing they were going to become some of the best teams of all time. They both went 3-0 in the respective group stages. Most notably, Team Liquid beat Navi, almost guaranteeing the final being Astralis versus Team Liquid. It really was the safe pick. Astralis versus Team Liquid was the way to go. They were the 2 best teams, and they'd beaten everybody that was in the major. Except for one. You know, there just was this one team that really, they hadn't actually had the chance to go up against the team. They didn't think they'd actually win. Easy for ends, put that Team Liquid was stopped by the only team that had a better storyline than them. The Finnish squad, known as ENCE, had gone from the European minor all the way up to the grand finals. This time it was Team Liquid's turn to be the Goliath. ENCE had really been the underdog the entire tournament, and for them to win was a huge step for them. And in all honesty, it would have probably been one of the greatest storylines if ENCE had won, and this video would probably have never been made. Team Liquid is often faulted for that loss as a simple choke, but in reality, ENCE had every right to be there like any other team. They have the appearance of a team that had come out of nowhere, but they'd actually been in the top 10 right before the tournament had started. Nonetheless, it is still sad that we didn't get to see probably what could have been one of the greatest major finals that had ever happened. Team Liquid versus Astralis at their peaks. If we look at what happened after, we see that Astralis went on to win in a very similar situation to this major in Berlin, and Team Liquid would go on to have the summer of Team Liquid, in which they won ESL 1 Cologne and dominated all around the world. Unfortunately for ENCE, while they did have some success immediately, they have probably got the worst out of this. Right now, they really aren't the best team in the world after their squad somewhat disbanded after the IGL LXCB was cut. And so that is the story of the greatest major final that never happened. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, and if you want to see more of my videos, go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell. I am trying to stream a little bit more on YouTube, especially now, on the grind back up to Immortal in Valorant. Finally, I made a very similar video to Cloud9's sort of historic, as well as North America's historic run up until the Boston Major. So if you want to go check that out, I will link that in the description. It's a very similar video to this one, and I would really appreciate it if you check it out. Thank you guys again, and I'll see you next time.